Hello and welcome to Module 7, where we're going to be exploring planning. So, when you want something to happen, something you want to do, and it's going to require more than make a decision, act, and it's done, it's very likely that you're going to need to plan it, particularly if it's going to take more time than something you can do in a small time frame, or if you're going to need more help with other people. And actually being able to plan over time, anticipate what's going to happen in the future, is a key component to be able to either delegate or ask for help, or simply to manage yourself and your time so that you get the time that you need to try to achieve what you want to do. Hopefully you started to realise now that how you make a decision will impact it. Your relationship with time will impact your decision making, but also your perceptions of time. If you're a bit of a big sky thinker, you'll tend to be looking at you'll look at the overview, the highlights. So if I said to you we have to move the office from London to Paris, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's only 2 inches on the map, that's really easy, let's just do it. However, if you're more of a sensory, in the moment kind of person where you'll really see the detail, there's a really good chance when it comes to planning, you'll be right down to the first letter that needs to be sent and a list of all the solicitors you need to contact and all those details. And we need both, big picture, be able to see the overview, and we also need to be able to get down to the detail. So depending on which is our natural preference, using clean language questions, we can help either scale ourselves up from the detail to the big picture or go from the big picture down to the detail. Add into that maybe if we've had any trauma, we might find it harder to reflect back over the past to work out what's worked before in order to anticipate what might work in the future. Clean language can also help us to heal those processes, look at those complex systems, and actually change the way that we experience time as well. So without any further ado, let's get this back to the big thing so you can see the PowerPoint more clearly, and let's get on for today. So we're going to recap, we're going to reflect. I want to talk to you about memorable mapping methods, and then we're going to look at your planning models. So we are on Module 7. You have one more to go. And I'd like to invite you now, as you look over doing those 7 modules, what you're noticing. Think about what was happening before you started versus what's happening now. What changes are you noticing? What progress are you making at managing yourself and your time more effectively? Thinking about the time module, what worked, what didn't work, what could have worked better. Don't forget, as always, hit the pause button, look at the answers, ask yourself, what do you mean by what you say? What kind of is that? Is there anything else about that? Notice whether you're talking about things that you can actually hear and see. So, the evidence. Are you talking about the inference, the story that you make up? Are you talking about the impact, the consequences, or how it makes you feel? Excuse my cough. And what do you know now about time? And what difference does knowing that make? Planning. So one of the time frames is going to be future based, and that's when we're planning or perceiving the anticipated things that go forward. Now, one of the great things about planning is it can settle that mammalian part of your brain. It says, right, the plan is we're going to have a party on this date. We need to buy the balloons on this date. We need to order the food on this date. We need to do this. And so the mammalian brain goes, yep, I know the rules. I know what to anticipate. The downside about planning is that when things don't go to plan, that can disrupt the mammalian brain, because it's like, oh, things are changing. It's not going the way we expected it to be. And so we can get ourselves stressed because the plan isn't working. And quite often what I've heard people say is we start thinking that planning is a waste of time. Even to the point that people start to think, actually, there's no point even dreaming, because I imagine it all looking really great and it all looking wonderful. But then when I go to actually action it and do something, it doesn't go to plan. And I can't deal with the disappointment. I can't deal with the rejection of it not having. So I've seen it when I work with authors. I've seen it in relationships. It's almost like you plan to have the conversation. You imagine it all going really well in your head. But then when you go to have it, it doesn't work. So you can create a behaviour where you just keep imagining it all gorgeous, but you never actually action it for it to actually happen, because the fear of actually getting the feedback that it didn't work is actually far more there's far more fear around that than the joy of actually having it happen. And so planning is a really, really important part of the process. And some people sort of see planning as like a prison. It's like the framework. You have to do it, rather than it's simply a framework that you can climb your way through to get to where you want to be. I see plans as a way of really thinking about how long the thing's going to take, who's going to do what, so that I can anticipate what could go wrong. I can anticipate what can go well. But ultimately, the thing is, I'm keeping my mind on the outcome, to work, learn, and live at my best, to manage myself and my time. That's what I want to have happen. Here's a loose frame of what I think will work. Based on past experiences, this is what will work. But the plan is something that always has to be updated. You don't plan and then you forget it. Planning is an active verb. You're always doing it. So you plan it, you action it, you then get feedback to see whether that plan worked or didn't work, and you update the plan. You keep it evolving. Now, one of the reasons why people don't do what they say they're going to do is because they actually forgot that's what they were going to do, particularly if the behavior or the action, the thing you're going to have to do, is a change in your behavior. So if you get stressed, you get overwhelmed, your brain can sometimes just default to your old behavior. So let's say you plan to eat really healthily, and the next thing you know, you've got a bar of chocolate in your mouth. Now, chocolate on its own is not a problem. I don't believe that you can't eat cake or eat chocolate when you eat healthily, but it's about how often, how much, and perhaps when you eat it as well. So you plan not to eat the chocolate or the cake, and the next thing you know, you've got chocolate in your mouth. And if that's about you understanding, okay, so the plan was today not to eat chocolate, but I've now eaten it. What happened just before? And sometimes it's just simply we didn't anticipate something. There was nothing we could have done about it. I mean, those of you that were watching this, and it's sort of for the 2 years the other side of the pandemic, COVID, nobody could have anticipated that. However, if you know what you need to work, learn, and live at your best, and you have a plan for resourcing yourself to be at your best, when curveballs come, when things change, you can assimilate that and you can include that in your next lot of decisions. But I know for me personally that even though I know that I work for periods of time, then I take some downtime, and then I work for chunks of time and I take some downtime. The pandemic hit us in March. I normally take most of April off. And because of it, I went on a 30-day challenge to learn how to build online courses like this in 30 days. So I worked every day for 5 hours a day on top of coaching my clients and keeping my one-to-one work going because people were in need of my service. It took me until the following April, a year later, before I absolutely hit the wall and went, oh my gosh, I need to go back and revisit what I need to work, learn, and live at my best. I've been in sort of emergency service, flight or free, reacting to the situation as it's going. And I actually went for a whole year before it really, really impacted me. But because I knew how to plan and I knew what I needed to work, learn, and live at my best, it was easier for me to start building in my time off and making sure when I was off, I was really off, that I was actually taking that time out. So today we're going to talk about planning for you. So it's like what? Planning for you is like what? For some people, it's a list of things they have to do. For other people, it's diary. For me, what I realised when I started in comparing with other people in a group, planning for me was like what? I realised other people, they had these really detailed plans. They had everything written down. And I realised that my planning was more like dreaming. I had all these clouds. Basically, planning for me, before I updated my planning model, was a bit like I have an idea. It wasn't even a firmly made decision. So when I'm planning, I have made a decision. I know what I want. I know when I want it. And I know the things that have to happen in between. And I am checking my diary to see whether I can do that. And if not, if I can't do it, who could do it? And then if I haven't got the time to put it in, am I prepared to go without sleep? Am I prepared to go without some other stuff that would normally be in my diary for working, learning, and living at my best? Can I maneuver it for this short period, or do I need to move the deadline? That's a very rough model of how I'm doing planning at my best. But before I knew that, my planning was very much My kids would say this, I put that in the diary, that's what they want. My husband would say that, I put that in the diary. My clients would say what they want, I put that in the diary. And then before I knew it, my diary was full, and there wasn't space for fun, there wasn't space for rest, there wasn't space for even planning and thinking. It was just full. Whereas now I have my planning times with I work with Leslie as my coach, at least once a month for half a day, if not twice a month, where I'm actually mapping out, reflecting on what has worked and mapping out what I'd like to have happen going forward. So I want you to think about for yourself, planning for you is like what? What does that mean for you? Now, one of the things that often happens with plans is that because we're holding information over time, it will often be impacted by the way that we learn, the way that we process information, spatial awareness, if trauma, for me, everything tends to be in 18-month blocks. And to do it in a smaller plan, I actually feel like I can feel myself, not so much now, let me put that in the past tense. I used to feel quite pressured. If I had this thing to write a book over 18 months, if I put it down to 18 days, I used to feel I would get sort of palpitations and feel quite stressed by it. I can now move those timelines in, and I can play around with them and have some fun with it. But one of the things is people, you can buy planning diaries, you can buy wall planners, you can buy all sorts of stuff. But the reality is that the plan has to be something you remember. Because if you're planning to do something that's a new behaviour in particular, or you're going to be asked information by other people that are in drama, they need your help, you have to be able to remember what your plan was, so that when you make a decision aligned with other people, you don't lose sight of what it is that you needed to have happen and what you needed to be at your best. And we can all compromise. We can all go without sleep for a little while. We can all go without, eating properly for a little while. We can go without exercise for a little while, or a period of time. Yours might be longer than mine. But if we do that continually, we don't end up being at our best. So having a way of remembering what your plan is important. And as we moved into the age of technology and the age of information, and people start putting things in digitally, there's lots of people that really struggle with moving from handwritten diaries to electronic diaries, for lots of different reasons. And most of it will come down to understanding what's why we do learning at your best model. How do you process information? What works for you? But then more importantly, how do you remember it? So I want to share with you the memorable mapping method. And these are the three things that I have seen with myself and my clients, that when we remember it, these are the things that come into play. So if you can remember SRS, space, repetition, and senses. So we're more likely to remember it when we hold the information in space. And for some people, seeing it on the laptop, depending on their spatial awareness, people who are very detailed orientated, quite, space information being on a spreadsheet, being small data, being on an electronic diary, absolutely works for them. But people that are perhaps more big picture thinking, they might need this to be on a vision board up in the air. And we're all different, but ultimately we recall information from memory, and we tend to look up to recall information. So finding out where your memorable space is, where you need things to be in order to be able to collect it, is great. Another way we remember things is literally repetition. So when we're doing something new, if you're learning how to work, learn and live at your best, and you're learning to make decisions differently now, and you're learning to change your way you talk about time, it's going to be repetition, and we have to practice it, and we have to make it the new way of being until that becomes the thing where you go, this is what I do. So for example, I used to drink tea with sugar and milk in it. I then gave up tea I just had black tea. Now I only have one cup of tea. I have one tea bag per day, and I have maybe top it up twice, and I have one cup of tea usually about 2 or 3 o'clock. That's absolutely what I do now. But it was a practice and practice and practice. I do drink loads of water in between, by the way. Practice and practice and practice before that became where I'd say this is what I do. Before I was sort of working at it and practicing it. So we need to do things repetitively, and we need to see things in order, see and hear them, which brings us on to senses. So I want you to think about space. If you have your plan, where is plan when you remember it? Or another question you could ask yourself, find a space that knows something else about plan when it's easy to remember. Or where is plan? And notice where it is now. And for me, when I did this question, it was in my head. It was just like one of those clouds. It was just over there floating. And as long as I wasn't stressed, I would remember that's what I was aiming for. If I got stressed and I got a lot of people asking me for information, it was quite likely that I would forget it. So when I plan and I remember it, then I have a notebook. I have a series of notebooks. I have one that's got my yearly goals, what I want to have happen this year. And in there, every quarter, I write down what I want to have happen in the next 90 days. I have another notebook that's got my weekly, this is what I want to have happen this week. And I have another one with my daily. And they're the things that as I remember them, I write them down. If I can do them on the same day as there, but I also have a CRM system where I set tasks on the CRM system and I put on there things I've got to do when. And I generally use that if I can't do it the day that I've got it, I'll put it on the CRM system to remind myself to do it in the future. So if I can do it this week, it goes in my week one. I do it daily. If it's still on there at the end of the week and I can't do it that week, then it goes on my CRM system to make sure I don't forget it. So what I know for me is I have to have these things in multiple places. That's the repetition. I also know that I will work with Leslie when I'm thinking about the year ahead, and I will think about the year ahead if it was just the way I'd like it to be. It'd be like what? And I have metaphors for it, and I will draw a vision. So I've got, let me just see if I can change. I just don't know if you can see it here. If I put that there, that's my vision board. That's more about how my year feels. And that's like it's just pictures to remind me of art and resting and family and connection and culture and learning about different people. That's the vision. But I have another one. This is another one I've got, which is I drew it. So I got fit for 21. So I've got emotionally fit, financially fit, mentally fit, physically fit, fun, interesting, and trackable is what the other fit stands for as well, that life's fun, interesting and trackable. So I have that written there, and that's also up there. Don't always see it all the time. I can see the top of the 2021 bits, and I know what's on that piece of paper. I had some working and living. I had them in clouds. So I would be earning, it says £1,100 per week. I actually managed to do that per month by the end of the year. So I was obviously maybe not going as fast as I thought I was going to do with the increases. I would have got my systemic level one, professional level, which I did get. And I'd be fitter, stronger and confident, more confident socially with strangers. And they are things I have achieved. I'm in October now of 2021, and those things are there. So the one that I've still got to work on is my book being published and my income. However, I know that's what I put down per week. But I also know that what I set myself as increments wasn't aligned with that. And so just having this and reminding myself, that's what I said at the beginning, I can now check with it. So I want you to think about your plans. Your plan, when you remember it, where is it? And then once you've placed that plan where it needs to be, is that in the right space? Is it at the right height? Is it at the right angle? And is it the right distance between you and it? And what I know for me personally is that I have to have things up on the right hand side to start with. So I've got a magnetic board here, and my desk is often sat here when I'm doing my planning sessions. I'll have it up there as a reminder. And once it's embedded in my memory that that's what it's going for. So I know that I remembered, funny enough, I remembered I wanted to be fit emotionally, physically, financially, and what's the other one? Emotionally, mentally. But what I didn't remember is what I set myself, the detail of how much I wanted to earn per week. I actually had remembered that as being per month. And funny enough, I'm on track to do it for per month. So this is a really good reminder for myself that if I want those goals, I need to make sure the detail is much clearer to me. So next year when I do that, what I'll learn from this is I'll make that income goal bigger for me, and I'll make sure the PW per week is much clearer, that it's per week, not per month. And I'm going to check in with myself, actually, where did that number come from? Was I just guessing a figure, or was it what I really wanted and what I really needed? So I want you to first of all think about the space. Where does your plan need to be? Then we're going to look at repetition. Now, one of the things you can do is think about writing out what you want as a positive statement. So for me, fit mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially became something I could repeat as a mantra. But it's also about having cheerleaders, both your inner cheerleader and people around you. People who catch you getting it right. So that when you do it, when you have that affirmation that you've got it right, you can do a positive affirmation of what you want. You have yourself and other people affirming that you've got it right. When you repeat that to yourself and you confirm that it works and it gives you that feel-good factor, you're more likely to want to repeat it as well. But it's also about reminders. So I have an accountability buddy, and we get together on the first week of the month. We say out loud what it is we want to have happen for the month. Second week, we look at our income and we look at whether we're on track to achieve our income goals. Second week, we look at our marketing and we track what's working. And third week, we celebrate everything that's worked. I have that reminder in my diary because I'm going to meet with her at 2:00 on Monday every week. I know that that's going to happen, and I know that she's going to ask me about those things. Now, the difference between an accountability perhaps and a coach is that sometimes they remember what I said. Now, I don't think my accountability remembered exactly what I said or how much I wanted to earn. I don't even know if I actually told her. And so it's make sure those reminders are clear and they are clarity of what you actually want and what you'll hear and see as evidence that it's going to happen. But thinking about the thing that you want to have happen, how can you repeat it? Can you repeat it in different places? Can you repeat it in different colours? How can you get repetition to make it easier and more memorable that this is your plan and this is what you want to have happen? And that brings us on to the 5 senses. So I've got my visual one. I've got my auditory one because I talk to my accountability buddy. Taste, smell and feel. I know that I feel lighter and I feel taller when I'm achieving what I want to achieve. When I'm mentally, physically and emotionally and financially fit, I feel taller. And taste, for me, it's always that crunchy, healthy food. It's that taste of like clear water. I just feel quite angelic. I feel quite, cleansed is a good word when I'm following my plan. And that's not just about whether I've eaten healthy or not, although that tends to assign to it. When I'm doing what I said I was going to do, I feel good and it tastes amazing. Like I can, everything about me tastes and smells great. So thinking about you and your plan, what would you see? What would you hear? What would you taste? What would you smell? What would you feel? Just check in with yourself, pause the video and ask yourself those questions. What would you see? What would you hear? What would you taste? What would you smell? And what would you feel? And there'll be some there. For me, the seeing and the hearing are always ones that come much quicker and easier for me. The feeling one, I have to work on it. And it's only through time that I've realised if I don't, the taste and smell tend to be more as an impact of. So when I see and hear this and I feel this, then what's associated with that is I tend to be eating really well. And it's crispness and lightness and it's like zest. It's like lemons and limes and there's a freshness. Even like that autumn mornings when there's a bit of frost just coming. There's a crunch to the taste of everything, and the smell. It is clear air. It's just a cleanness, and that's not because of clean language, but there's a cleanness to it. There's a clarity. Like the shiny crystal glasses. The smell. It's a really weird thing for me. It's a smell of nothingness, which is really weird. But I've changed from using chemicals to clean the house, and the house now smells cleaner. And I haven't got any of those high, strong bleach and perfumey smells that were associated or I'd been educated to think that's a clean house. So I don't have a strong smell of polish and a strong smell of bleach and a strong smell of whatever smells around the house. But the house smells clean because there is no smell, if that makes any sense whatsoever. That's a bit of insight I've just gained by talking that through with you today. So I want you to think about now, what do you know now about planning? What difference does knowing that make? As always, pause the video, delve down, get clarity of what you mean by what you say. And then this week, I want you to explore in this module, planning for you is like what? And if planning were just the way you'd like it to be, it would be like what? And I just want you to notice if they're the same or different. And then you can use the process of going, well, this is what planning is like at the moment. If this is just the way I'd like it to be, what happens in between? And it might be that planning for you just the way you'd like it to be, actually you do know how to do it. It's just that you haven't made the conscious decision to give yourself time to do it. And I'm often asked the question, when's the best time to plan? And time is a constant cycle. It's something you're always doing. And there are going to be times when you need to, some people plan in November, so they've got the run up and they know that what they're going to do from the 1st of January. Some people won't plan for 2022 or the following year until they're in the year of January. It doesn't matter, because if you start your planning in January for a year, it will take you up to and over November, December into January the following year, and it will work for you. If you start in November to plan for the following year and you do it again the following November, your 1 year planning will always work. So there is no right time specifically other than time for you. But traditionally, people will have 1 year plans, 90-day plans, 30-day, and then down to 1 week, and then down to 1 day. And in essence, for the plan is, what would you like to have happen? But planning, once you've decided what you want, a plan would give you the reminder. It will remind you what you want. So that's when an actual plan for some people would actually be something that's visual or auditory, or something that will remind you that this is what you want, particularly if you're changing behaviour. So I look forward to hearing what your plans are, and I'll see you in the next module.